I smoothed my blazer for the third time, feeling the soft silk of my blouse glide under my fingers, and stared out the floor-to-ceiling window. The city below was humming with life, oblivious to the storm that had knocked me sideways last week. My father, gone without a warning, leaving a void I couldn't yet name. Even now, I kept the grief tucked behind my professional smile, letting only the faintest tremor of it show when I thought no one was looking. The phone buzzed on my mahogany desk. A message from the office chat. "If you're the boss, I will quit." I exhaled slowly, eyes narrowing. That was Peter, our manager, always testing boundaries, never missing an opportunity to belittle someone he underestimated. The irony, of course, was delicious. He didn't know yet that the new boss was me, stepping in officially today after months of secret preparations. I ran my hand over the leather-bound notebook my grandmother had given me years ago, a simple gift, a reminder that I was stronger than anyone's opinion. The scent of fresh coffee filled the room, the morning sun glinting off the polished glass of my office. My heart thudded with a mix of sadness and a simmering, quiet triumph. Peter thought he was in control. That was about to change. I remember the day my father's words cut deeper than any argument I had ever faced. I was 19, standing in the cramped kitchen of our suburban home in Chicago, trying to explain my plans to take an internship across the country. "Dad, it's a great opportunity," I said, voice trembling despite my effort to stay calm. "It could shape my career." He shook his head, lips pressed tight. "Olivia, you're too young. You don't know what you're doing. Maybe this isn't for you." His tone wasn't just doubt, it was disappointment. And worse, it carried a quiet finality that felt like rejection. I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat making words stick. I can do this. I'll make you proud." "You'll regret leaving," he said, eyes softening just slightly. "You're too close to Mom's expectations. Don't get lost in chasing someone else's world." I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. Instead, my hands shook as I clutched the small, worn notebook my grandmother had given me on my last birthday. She'd whispered, "Olivia, the world will doubt you. But don't ever doubt yourself. Keep this and remember who you are." The notebook was blank except for a single page with her neat handwriting. "Strength grows in silence and persistence." I closed my eyes for a moment, drawing in the scent of the kitchen, warm bread, sharp coffee, and made a decision I would never regret. That night, I packed my belongings quietly, leaving a note instead of words I couldn't force past my fear and love. I would step into the world alone, carrying my grandmother's wisdom, and carve out a life that belonged to me, not one defined by doubt or hesitation. That evening, as I closed the door behind me, the air outside felt like both freedom and challenge, a reminder that my journey would be long and lonely at times, but entirely mine. That quiet resolve would guide me, shaping the woman I was becoming, even before the first client, the first paycheck, or the first taste of success. The first months were brutal. I moved to New York with nothing but a suitcase, my grandmother's notebook, and a spark of determination. Every morning, the subway rattled beneath me as I clutched my portfolio, rehearsing pitches in my head. My first apartment was barely larger than a closet, but it had sunlight streaming through a narrow window, and I convinced myself that was enough. It was during one of those early, exhausting days that I met Margaret Shaw, a seasoned executive at the firm I interned for. She had a sharp wit, an even sharper eye for talent, and somehow she saw potential in me that no one else did. "Olivia," she said on our third meeting, "you have vision. Don't let anyone, not even yourself, talk you out of it." I nodded, though doubt gnawed at the edges of my mind. The nights were long, hours hunched over spreadsheets, revising presentations, making calls that ended in polite rejections. I often cried into my pillow, frustrated by mistakes, by clients who ignored my proposals, by the gnawing loneliness. But each morning, the notebook lay open on my desk, her words whispering persistence, strength, and courage. Small victories began to appear like stars in the darkness. My first big client signed a modest contract, the second doubled it. I learned quickly how to navigate office politics, how to assert my voice without anger, how to turn rejection into strategy. Slowly, the independent life I had envisioned started to solidify, not flashy, not yet visible to my family, but real. I kept my success secret. Every call to my father was filled with mundane updates, every social media post carefully curated, leaving out the triumphs, the promotions, the growing influence I wielded. If they believed I was still struggling, it was fine. I was building my empire quietly, intentionally. By my third year, I had launched a side consultancy, helping startups stabilize their finances, gain clients, and expand. The firm I interned with became a stepping stone rather than a cage. Nights blurred into early mornings, and the city became my ally, a rhythm of ambition and opportunity that no one back home could imagine. Every challenge, every late night, every no I absorbed became part of the armor I wore beneath my polished suits. Olivia Bennett, once the hesitant girl doubted by her father, was quietly transforming into a woman who would not only survive, but dominate. And the notebook, always by my side, reminded me, strength grows in silence and persistence. The conference room was quiet, except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. I arrived early, as usual, letting my heels click softly against the polished wood floors. The room was a blend of modern elegance and subtle warmth, marble accents, abstract art, and a view of the skyline that seemed to stretch infinitely. Every detail spoke of precision, of care, and, quietly, of power. Peter walked in last, smirk already forming on his face. "Well, Olivia," he said, his tone dripping with condescension, "I see you finally made it to the big chair. But don't forget, if you're the boss, I will quit." I let him take in the surroundings for a moment. The sleek desk, the leather-bound client folders, the framed awards lining the shelves. I waited, feeling the steady calm of years of preparation settle over me. "Peter," I began, voice smooth, even, yet layered with a quiet authority, "if you leave, I won't stop you, but you might want to reconsider staying." His smirk faltered slightly, replaced by a flicker of doubt. I continued, letting each word roll off my tongue with care. "You see, I've been managing this division for months now. The contracts you laughed at, the clients you dismissed, they're all mine. I am not just in charge. I am the owner of this branch, and our firm's growth this year? Fully accredited to me." The silence that followed was thick. Peter's jaw tightened. He opened his mouth, probably searching for a sarcastic retort, but none came. Then came the call I had been dreading yet anticipating, the first video call from home. My mother's face appeared, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. Even she couldn't mask the shock. "Olivia, what, how?" I smiled, soft yet unyielding. "You doubted me when I was 19. You doubted I could handle opportunities, that I could thrive without your approval. Now I'm here. I've been here, quietly building my life, my career, my independence. And today, I finally get to show you what that looks like." I held up the notebook, worn at the edges, a silent testament to every struggle, every late night, every rejection I'd faced alone. "This," I said, voice steady, "is my compass. And I think it's guided me well." Peter shifted in his seat, swallowing hard. My mother blinked rapidly, as if trying to reconcile the image of the daughter they thought struggling with the woman who now commanded authority in a room full of seasoned professionals. I let them absorb it, let the surprise, the guilt, the shame, the admiration settle. I didn't need to say more. The power had shifted entirely. And just before concluding, I added softly, almost to myself, but loud enough for them to hear, "Strength grows in silence and persistence. I hope one day you'll understand what it means to nurture it instead of dismissing it." The room held its breath, and for the first time, I felt the gravity of all I had endured and the exhilaration of finally standing unshakable in my truth. I leaned back slightly, letting the weight of my presence settle into the room. Peter's eyes darted nervously, my mother's lips pressed together as if holding back words, and even my younger brother, Ethan, looked at me with a mix of awe and uncertainty. For years, they had defined my limits, but now, I was defining mine. "Let me be clear," I said, voice calm but unwavering. "I'm not here to punish anyone. I am here to set boundaries and expectations, because I've learned the hard way that success without respect, without personal growth, is empty." Peter shifted uncomfortably. "Boundaries?" he asked, incredulous. "Yes," I replied. "If you choose to stay, there are conditions. You must communicate professionally, respect the chain of command, and stop undermining colleagues. No more smirks, no more arrogance. You have to prove that you can contribute, not sabotage." My mother's shoulders sagged slightly, as if relief and guilt were competing. "And what about us?" she asked quietly. "You get to rebuild our relationship," I said, choosing my words carefully. "That means acknowledging the ways doubt and dismissiveness hurt me. It means actively listening and supporting, rather than controlling or criticizing. If you want to be part of my life fully, you'll pursue understanding, not judgment." Ethan shifted in his chair. "And me?" "You'll carve your own path," I said, smiling faintly. "I won't define your choices, but I won't let old habits of entitlement or laziness influence my life. You can lean on me if you want, but only if you bring effort, integrity, and respect to your actions." I could feel the tension slowly giving way. Peter's jaw tightened, but I sensed a flicker of willingness. My mother blinked back tears, and Ethan's fingers fiddled nervously with the hem of his shirt. They could see I wasn't asking, I was stating. Then, softer, almost as a reminder to myself, I added, "This isn't about revenge. It's about growth for all of us. And for me, it's about preserving my peace, my achievements, and my life." I placed my grandmother's notebook on the conference table, its worn edges catching the light. "This guided me," I said, "and I hope it inspires you, in whatever way you're ready to accept. Strength grows in silence and persistence, but it also grows in accountability and change." The room was quiet, but it felt different now, not fearful, not defeated, but aware. They had seen the woman I had become, and they were beginning to understand the terms by which they could remain part of her world. For the first time, I didn't feel the weight of proving myself. I had already done that, quietly, relentlessly, and now, compassion and authority walked hand in hand in the room I had claimed as my own. Weeks passed, and the changes I had set in motion began to show. Peter adjusted, cautiously professional but willing, his smirk replaced by a tentative respect. My mother sent messages checking in, sometimes awkwardly, sometimes warmly, as she navigated a new way of relating to me. Even Ethan began to take small steps toward independence, asking advice instead of seeking permission. I watched it all from my office one morning, sunlight spilling across the polished floors, coffee warming my hands. The city outside moved with its usual chaos, but inside, there was calm. I thought about the journey that had brought me here, the nights I cried alone, the months I spent building in silence, the constant self-doubt that had once seemed unbearable. Every struggle, every tear, had become a stepping stone to this moment. On my desk, the notebook lay open. The familiar lines from my grandmother stared back. "Strength grows in silence and persistence." I traced the words with my finger, letting them remind me not just of where I had been, but of the person I had chosen to become. Strength, yes, but also grace, wisdom, and compassion. I reflected on the power of choice. I could have burned bridges, demanded apologies, or held grudges, but I hadn't. I had chosen to lead with authority tempered by understanding. I had chosen my path, and in doing so, I had inspired those around me to consider theirs. A soft breeze swept through the open window, carrying the scent of the city, the subtle reminder that life moves forward whether we are ready or not. And I was ready to continue building, to continue growing, to continue thriving. As I looked out over the skyline, I whispered to myself, a statement meant for the world but first and foremost for me. I am not just who I was told to be. I am everything I dared to become. In that moment, grief and triumph, sorrow and pride, Fear and courage coexisted perfectly. The journey had been mine alone, but the strength I carried now would ripple into every corner of my life, unshakable, undeniable, and unapologetically me.